I was 26. I made $6 million. I was phenomenally successful. I also had hit 300 pounds. Before I was 30, I had most of the diseases that old people get. Protein restriction is harming people's long-term health right now. And the big food industry has put a lot of money into convincing you that you should eat mostly plants and limit your protein. That's economic. It's nothing to do with your longevity. Your neurons in your brain, they prefer ketones because ketones have extra energy compared to burning glucose. So the cells in your body can burn fat or carbs. Everyone knows fat has more calories, right? Calories are how you measure energy. So let's see, the neurons, which are the most energy using parts of your brain, they prefer high octane fuel. Maxing thing with people under 25, your prefrontal cortex isn't even fully baked until about 24, 25.
What's the worst trend in wellness right now?
Following influencers who don't know anything about wellness. Like the echo chamber is so big right now. They're like, someone said this and someone said this, and by the time you hear it, it's like the whisper game, and 10 later, it's so simplified that you end up harming yourself.
I gotta imagine you've been asked every version of how do I live longer about 1,000 times now. So I'm gonna try a slightly different angle. Now, I've been experimenting a bit myself, getting into things like neurofeedback and paying more attention to how stress shows up day to day, focusing on sleep, things like that. I got the Aura Ring, I got the Muse headband, thanks to you with the Satori app, which we'll talk about later. But this has made me
Sweet.
realize that pretty quickly how easy it is to go down a rabbit hole. I've actually told most of the people closest to me and the ones I see daily to check me if I ever start sounding a little crazy or trying the next new device. Make sure they hold me accountable to the ones that I had already started with. So,
No, don't do that. No, that's the wrong strategy.
well, if someone's listening to this, they're juggling work, family, stress, kids, whatever, and they don't have the time, the money, or the science to become a full-time biohacker or turn their kitchen into a science experiment, where do they actually start without going completely off the deep end?
Well, the first thing we've got to talk about is if you decided you were going to try something and you try it for a week or a month, long enough to know, and it doesn't work, you should quit doing it. Even if you told your friends and family, I'm committed to this new thing. What a lot of us do is we say, all right, I'm going to, oh, here's a good one. I know that, my parents told me to, so I'm going to go to law school. If halfway through law school, you hate your life, should you finish law school and become an attorney?
Depends on your parents, I suppose.
Exactly, right? So continuing to do something that doesn't work in biohacking, look, every biology is unique and every brain is unique. And I'm sitting here at 40 Years of Zen, my brain upgrade place in Austin. And man, every time someone comes through, we look at the electrical activity in the brain, they're not the same. So the stuff that might work for 80% of people may not work for you. Right. So you can try it and you got to give it enough time to know. But if you were meant for sprinting and you're doing long distance running, you're just never going to be good at that. So you should probably find the workout that works for your body. And it's the same in everything. So the first thing you do is you say, when you want to get started is, well, what's your goal? Right. So for some of us, I got to manage this stress and anxiety, or I would like my brain to work better. I just feel like I'm too slow half the time, or I got to get my energy back, or I have all this extra weight. I had 100 extra pounds. So goals are entirely different. Biology is different and brains are different.
Yeah.
So what's going on is pick a goal, number one,
Okay.
and then go down and say, all right, if this is my goal, what can I do in the least possible amount of cost? But cost is not about money. Cost is about, number one, how much energy does it take? And number two, how much suffering does it take? Number three is how much time does it take? And number four is how much money. But we tend to think about money. So here's an example. I've got a free hack that will make you live for 50 years longer. You ready for it?
Yeah.
All you have to do is wake up every morning and punch yourself in the eye as hard as you can 10 times. Every morning without fail.
Okay.
No one's going to do it.
No.
Okay. No one's going to do it. So
But if you said it, they
turns out
might try it.
they'll try it. There's a bunch of people who look like they're in a Fight Club, but it's not feasible. So really, you got to understand, we all have willpower. I mean, if you got through law school or something, you have willpower. You have the ability to execute. But it comes at a cost, and that cost is the amount of energy you have. So whatever you decide to do to improve, it gets tacked on to after you pay your bills and take care of your basic biology, right? And then you don't see this, but your body's processing and allocating energy to all these five different things. And for you to improve yourself, that's the last place energy goes. So you got to do something to make that happen. And if you use willpower, willpower takes energy away that could be used for personal development or for losing the weight or any of the biohacks, becoming more conscious, becoming stronger, faster, smarter, longer lived, all the things. So you got to be really strategic about picking your goal first and then being absolutely, I'm going to trigger everyone, absolutely lazy, which means you don't want to do more work than is necessary for it. Right. And it's funny at work, we're like, oh, yeah, I'd like to do that more effectively. But no, the gym, I got to go to the gym and, I got to do an hour a day every day. No,
Yeah.
if you do it in 5 minutes, you should want to do that. So honor the fact that efficiency drives all human progress. We don't want to waste energy. We don't want to do it inside our cells all the way up to our highest. So just acknowledge you don't have to do everything right. You just have to get results. Minimum effective dose.
That's Dave Asprey, everyone, four-time New York Times bestselling author. He's a longevity expert. He founded the biohacking movement. I believe his name is next to the word in Webster's dictionary. He also founded Bulletproof Coffee, Bulletproof Diet. He hosts the Human Upgrade podcast, which has been the offshoot or has created several offshoot podcasts from quasi experts and followers. After he lost 100 pounds and transformed his own health and his cognitive performance, he spent the last 2 decades building tools, companies, and an entire movement focused on helping people take control of how they feel, think, and age, from neurofeedback programs like 40 Years of Zen that he just mentioned, which I happen to have tried out a couple months ago. And he's got Upgrade Labs. It's the first AI powered biohacking facility, which I've also tested out and toured. To his latest work around stress and mental resilience in heavily meditated, he continues to push the edge of what's possible in human performance. So, Dave, welcome to Beyond the Briefcase. You've told
I'm happy to be around. This is fun.
You've told the story of your transformation. Looking back, what were you getting wrong early on?
Early on, I used to just believe that willpower was it and that pushing would get it done. And it kind of did. I was 26, I made $6 million, and these were pre-Biden dollars, so that was a lot of money back then.
Heck yeah.
And okay, that wasn't political, that was economic. But um so I really I was phenomenally successful. I also would hit 300 pounds, but before I was 30, I had most of the diseases that old people get. I had arthritis when I was 14, chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia. Well, I'm, operating. In fact, I was attending board meetings for a $36 billion company, and I was a co-founder of a part of that company in the dot-com boom, and it was a crazy time. But I get home at the end of the day. I didn't even know how I got home. I couldn't remember anything. I bought disability insurance, so I have this picture of myself at work where I actually was kicking ass objectively, and I was like the car you're driving, and you're going up a hill, and you have the accelerator pressed all the way down, and the car's slowing down. You can push harder, but it doesn't matter. There's no more push to do,
Right.
so you're just wasting the effort. And I find a lot of people are there today, especially if you're growing your career. You've got these competing priorities. You got to like find and maintain your tribe. You got to like find a romantic partner, right? And build your career, start making your mark in the world. And then, God forbid you have a couple kids in there that take up way more energy. And all of a sudden you look down, you're like, man, I'm fat and I feel like shit and I'm stressed all the time. And there's nothing I can do
Yet you had all this
because,
willpower, and it's
yeah,
like, this is not, there's more to it than that.
yeah, you burned it out. So my biggest mistake was not paying attention to the high ROI things that returned energy. And if I'd have managed my energy well, everything would have been easy.
I had a business coach years ago that said the number one most significant asset, which you have control over, is your energy level. So it's interesting that you
Great
say that.
coach.
Yeah, he was worth that one meeting at the very least. Won't mention his main name, but sometimes all it takes is a one-liner for to change your life. and how you think of it. So what I started focusing on was my sleep about 3 years ago, and the Aura Ring gave me that gauge to check it. People have the Whoop, and there's this other one, I don't know if it's called the Hume or something. I don't know, but pick something, right? And start monitoring it.
Yeah, all of them are inaccurate, and all of them are accurate enough that you can do your day-to-day change. So don't take it as, God's word from on high that you got 90 minutes of REM sleep. But if you got more tonight or more last night than the night before, that's a good sign. So they're directionally accurate. And I've been wearing a sleep tracker for 20 years. The first one was actually a headband that you'd have to sleep in. It was not Victoria's Secret approved. I'm back when Victoria's Secret was sexy. I mean, before they went all weird.
Right.
So, um, what what I found was that I was getting 5 minutes of deep sleep a night. I was a terrible sleeper, and I didn't know. So I had this sort of hostile relationship with sleep, and I said, I'm going to fix this. And I've taught 100,000 people how to sleep with the best marketing URL of my life. And I'm not selling anything. It's funny. It was sleepwithdave.com. And I was just,
Some
here's
people
my
might think
free
it's a
everything I know
dating
about
site,
sleep.
a bachelor site, right?
Exactly. And so sleep is the most important. And the definition of biohacking is change the environment around you and inside you so you have control of your biology. And it turns out a lot of sleep is not what you're doing inside you, it's your environment. So those bathroom lights that you turn on before you go to bed, it doesn't matter. 5 seconds of that, and your body says, nope, it's not nighttime anymore. You might go to sleep, but you just get garbage sleep. So allowing yourself to experience this thing that's been a major part of our life forever. It's called darkness. And
Mhm.
we don't have it anymore. And darkness and sunlight are both critically important for energy. So if you can make it truly dark in your house when you sleep and make it truly dim before you go to sleep, like it would have been if we didn't have electricity, then you wake up in the morning, you get a little bit of sunlight in your eyes, real sunlight, not through a window, not through glasses. There's a lot of signaling in there that just re-regulates your energy system. So I go to bed at 10:30 now. For most of my life, I was a 2 a.m. sleeper and I couldn't do anything about it. But it was all about the color of the light.
Hmm.
And so this is one of the things that you change that. You get red light bulbs, dimmer switches, or and I'm not trying to sell my stuff, but True Dark, the glasses I make for sleep, I don't get jet lag anywhere on the planet. And it's not about blocking the blue. It's about blocking the four colors that mess you up at night. And that's been just life changing for me. So red light bulbs in the house at night, people think I'm in a submarine or some other kind of house of ill repute. I'm okay with that. I
Yeah.
sleep.
Yeah, that's true. It's harder to make your rooms completely dark these days. So I went on and got some of those stickers that you referenced to cover the LEDs on the
Yeah.
air the air cleaner and the alarm stuff and I've been called a little crazy by some of my friends, but I don't tell them everything I do. I want to know what's something that you believed back then that you've completely changed your mind about.
Well, I actually became a vegan years ago in my quest to lose weight. And I was absolutely convinced that it's about enzymes and plants. And I shattered 3 teeth after about a year on that program because the vegan diet sucks minerals out of your body. It drops your testosterone. I lost weight. It was muscle and all. Not good. I did some pretty hard to reverse damage to my immune system with that as well. So I believed wholeheartedly, plant power. It's complete marketing nonsense and it doesn't work. And that said, some plants are good for you, some plants are bad for you. That's kind of how it is. So I had to stop being vegan. And I've been pretty scientific about that. I also believed once that um, if you could just be keto all the time, that would be all you needed. And this was before all the modern keto stuff, based on a guy named Atkins, who wrote a book the year I was born about this. This isn't new information.
Mhm.
And you try that, you'll get sick. So the vegan diet makes you sick, and the keto diet makes you sick. And there's probably a place for keto. It's just in short bursts. So my first big book introduced intermittent fasting to the world and cyclical keto at the start of the keto movement over the last decade or so.
Fast this way.
And Oh, that was the Bulletproof Diet actually said, here's how to do keto and actually lose weight sustainably. And it's basically don't do keto. Do it for a week, then stop. Do it for a week, then stop. But all the keto bros, like, if you eat another carb again, you're gonna die.
Yeah.
And if you're listening to this, especially if you're, under 35, your body can you can eat a vegan diet, you eat a keto, you can handle all sorts of stuff. Around 35, there's hormonal shifts in your stress management hormones, and you're burning the candle at both ends with either of those diets. You can cycle in and out of ketosis, and a vegan diet is just provably bad for you always. So
Yeah.
don't do that.
Well, so you mentioned ketones and or the keto diet. I never wanted to try it. I never tried the Atkins, but there's all these liquid ketone products out now, and people that want to try them out. What might be a good reason to incorporate that? And should you incorporate daily or just as a supplement when your energy's low?
Um, the answer is yes to both, probably, depending on your budget and your goals. Say you should do it daily, and you can certainly do it when you're tired. And here's why you think about this. Uh, your neurons in your brain, they prefer ketones because ketones have extra energy compared to burning glucose. So the cells in your body can burn fat or carbs. Everyone knows fat has more calories, right? Calories are how you measure energy. So let's see, the neurons, which are the most energy using parts of your brain, they prefer high octane fuel. Who would have thought? And the roadies, the maintainers of the brain, the glial cells, they prefer sugar. So historically in India, you could say, well, I'm going to eat and I will burn glucose, or I will fast and I will go in ketosis. And you fast to enter these cognitively intense meditation and flow states. Or you could be a biohacker and say that's a lot of work. I want both.
Yeah.
So the first big innovation in the space is one you've heard of called Bulletproof Coffee, which used MCT oil. Now, I have nothing to do with the company Bulletproof. Danger Coffee is my new coffee brand. So if you're buying Bulletproof thinking that I've blessed anything the company does, I have not. I have not talked to them in years, and it's not particularly a great situation there. So that said, MCT oil, which is the Bulletproof Coffee ingredient, it was the first generation how to raise ketones, even if you're eating carbs. So now you can have the neurons happy and the roadies happy, the rock stars and the roadies. And now you can get these ketone liquids. And there's something called a ketone diol. There's a little shot you can take. Ketone salts, which you might see, or BHB salts. I don't recommend those for medical reasons. But the liquid ketones, they're kind of pricey. They turn off inflammation throughout the body. They power your neurons. It's like you're eating the keto diet. So most people take those and you're like, what just happened? Why am I so smart right now? Why am I so clear? Why is my athletic performance better? So if you have a really intense day, you're going to be on your feet, or you're meeting with a big client, board meeting, stuff like that. You might find that those ketones stop the 2 p.m. dip, and if you wake up at 3 in the morning with racing thoughts, it's because you're having a blood sugar crash. So if you have ketones before bed, now your body's like, I got sugar and fat. I don't have to wake you up because I can still make enough energy to do
So
all
will
my
having
nighttime maintenance.
ketones similar to having coffee after a certain time of day where the half-life of caffeine is X, I think it's 6 hours. Um, do you have to be just as careful with the liquid ketones at the time of day you ingest them?
In fact, they work great before bed. Ketones are just energy, but they're not ampy. They're not a stimulant. It's kind of like having stable blood sugar at night. You don't have to worry about that. You want that. So ketones give you stable blood ketones, so your body can call on that energy reserve, and there's no digestion required. And
Hmm.
throughout history, you had to fast for 3 days or eat only fat in order to get there. So it's kind of cool. You can have a shot, and that same day, you've got the clarity that comes after days of fasting.
Hmm. Well, I started with the MCT oil in the coffee several months ago now, and it helps me skip breakfast and do the intermittent fasting more daily. When I see people on the street that have known me for more than 10 years or even just 5, they say, Matt, you look great. And then see them 2 years later and they're saying the same thing. So I know I'm doing something right. And I attribute that primarily to the intermittent fasting. And, some of my friends that are on these crazy diets, I tell them just to try it, whether they take my advice or not. I tell them to look elsewhere. Um,
Here's how to do that. Um, I highly recommend Danger Coffee because it's got about 22 bucks worth of trace and ultra trace minerals that you need in it anyway. Start with that, and it's mold free and all the stuff. Add a teaspoon to a tablespoon of C8 MCT oil. Lots of companies sell that now. I made it into $1 billion industry, but I don't sell it today. And and then maybe a teaspoon to a tablespoon of grass-fed butter, and just a little bit in there. And there's a strange biochemical reason to add the butter in there. And you've got to blend it. So a little frother or a proper blender. Don't just have it float on top. It doesn't work.
Hmm.
And the reason for this is that the mixture of the fat and the coffee changes the viscosity of the water so that it's directly usable inside your cells for making energy. And then it boosts ketones. So nobody understood this, including me. I knew it worked because I learned it from Tibetans drinking yak butter tea. But you should be able to take a shot of MCT, a bite of butter, and drink coffee, and it will not work. You'll just fill your pants. So blending's important. So Danger
Interesting.
Coffee, C8 MCT, butter, blend, drink. You do not care about breakfast, and it still counts as a fast.
Yeah. Well, that's really good advice. I just had my assistant pop in here real quick. I wanted to show you. I got this, and
You got the big bag.
yeah, I did. I don't want to run out. Got it on auto ship, but I have one of those melees with the different chambers. This chamber is called
Nice.
Danger, and my staff knows to only will use the one that doesn't say danger on it. It's perfect name. Who wants to use a dangerous thing? um, they're not as bold as me. So I want to shift a little bit, talking about biohacking versus real life. What's being
Okay.
overhyped right now
You know
for
what's being
people?
overhyped is peptides. So one of my books was a major longevity book, New York Times Science bestseller kind of a thing. And I went through the types of peptides and where they came from and what they do. And what drives me nuts is peptides are very powerful, but they're signaling molecules inside the body. But you don't start with peptides. And so I see so many friends say, I'm going to go on peptides. I'm like, are you taking vitamin D, this DAKNE, or do you have minerals in your body?
Hmm,
Like, no. Like, you don't frost the cake until you bake the cake. So you might want to start eating some animal protein, 1 gram per pound of body weight. You might want to take those fat soluble vitamins, and you might want to take your minerals, because these are foundational for every process in the body. And if you lack those, and then you say, I'm going to come in with my peptides and I'm going to do my turbo healing Wolverine, whatever, 5,000, there's all kinds of marketing out there. It's not going to work. And also, you go to the gym and you're doing your curls, and then the body goes, all right, it's time to build muscle. And he goes, where's the zinc? Oh, and I'm just fine. Have some stress. Right. So start with basic nutrient sufficiency and enough calories, the right kinds of fats, the right kinds of proteins, some carbs, not too many, and then try your peptides. But most people are doing it backwards. So I make the two least sexy but most efficacious supplements out there. You won't feel them on the first day, but nothing else works. The expensive nootropics, the longevity stuff, all of which I take. I spend $3,000 a month on supplements. I take 150 pills a day. I'm gonna live to 180. But I start out with ribeye, and I start out with minerals and vitamin D and A and K and E. So vitamindake.com has all that stuff, but it's like 20 bucks a month. It's not expensive to do that. And that's the most important stuff. If you don't have that, stop. Like, it's affecting your sleep. It's affecting your workouts. It's affecting your mood. Do that, because it's broad spectrum, foundational, and cheap, and it's not a lot of work. And then the peptides, you got to buy them, inject them, and all that. It's just not worth it until
Peptides are
you do the
so
basics.
they are a hot topic, and many people who listen to
Oh yeah.
this will question the advice you give them on that topic because of how mainstream it's become. What you're saying is peptides are not a be all end all. It's something, like you said, the icing on the cake that's going to maybe get you over that. What do you think is the minimum age, if there even is one, where someone should even consider peptides?
Probably about 14,
Okay.
but
All right.
that's only if you're sick. So if you have autism, you have ADHD, you've seen a doctor, you've cleaned up your diet, you got the toxic mold out of your house, maybe one of the brain peptides is going to really bring things back online for you. Do it with a functional doctor. Okay. There's really, I don't want to say you should never use them, but this whole like looks maxing thing with people under 25, your prefrontal cortex isn't even fully baked until about 24, 25. And it's really, really foolhardy to start with a big peptide thing, or even worse, a bunch of hormones. I see, early 20s guys, mostly guys, starting to use like heavy bodybuilding testosterone analogs, things that I might recommend for one of my VIP longevity clients who's 60 and has muscle mass problems, and we've done all the other stuff. But if you do that, you're not going to be able to have babies, or they're going to have three heads. Like you can permanently screw yourself up. And there's just no need for that. If you're under 25, get your testosterone measured. It's probably low, like your grandpa's was. And that's because of the environmental stuff we've done. So fix that. You can do it with diet, do it with exercise, with sleep. And if that doesn't work, you can get just regular, normal, bioidentical testosterone. And I'm not just saying this. When I was 26 and I'd hit 300 pounds, I went to see the longevity doc. There was only one in the Bay Area. And I sent my parents to him as a gift. And he calls me up when I went to see him after I got the results. Says, Dave, I got bad news for you. What? He says, your testosterone's lower than your mom's. It actually, at 26 years old. So I went on testosterone at 26 under a doctor's care, and it changed my life. I had two babies since then because I did it with the doctor. So I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. I'm saying get the numbers, fix it if you can. If it doesn't get fixed, then do it gently when you're young.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you going a little bit more detail on that. The kids under 20 and over 20, some of us are still big kids, most of us. They need to hear that from someone who's really spent the time, invested the energy, researching it behind it. I want to come back to something I mentioned earlier, which is my own experience with neurofeedback. So when I started paying attention to how my brain responds to stress in real time, it changed how I think about performance entirely. Um, what is actually happening in the brain during neurofeedback?
Well, during neurofeedback, we're measuring the electrical output of your brain. And it turns out there's what we can do about 20 different locations. And so we're measuring what's happening here versus here versus here. And we put it into a computer, and we're drawing a map to compare your brain to other people's brains, and a map to show your brain what it's doing. And your brain, it's the one organ designed to self optimize the fastest. Problem is, your brain has no nerves facing inwards. All the nerves face outward. So it doesn't know its own state. This is why during brain surgery, they can literally take the top of your head off and poke your brain. You won't feel a thing. So the brain's like blind. If you imagine, you ever seen one of those National Geographic things? They put a mirror in the jungle, and then like the big apes come up, like, oh, then they try to attack it, and they go, oh, wait, that's me. And then, oh, there's spinach in my teeth, and they clean their teeth. When you do neurofeedback, you're letting your brain clean the spinach off its own teeth. It doesn't understand. So, what we do and what you did when you came to 40 years of Zen is we're doing a really advanced neurofeedback, showing the brain what it's doing, but also giving it a reward when it enters the state of someone who's meditated for 20 or 30 or 40 years. So we're teaching you to have a monk brain. And so every time your brain is more monk like, not monkey like, but monk like,
Mhm.
then you get a positive sound. And so over the course of 5 days, you learn this new state that would be very hard to find. There's thousands of years of writings from caves and monasteries about how to enter these states. Or I can just have a computer say warmer, colder until you get there. And when people spend that 5 days, they have the same brain as a lifetime meditator. And then you get to carry that forward into your life. And you become aware of how incredibly responsive your brain is to things without your permission. So that's the gift of the kind of neurofeedback we're doing at 40 Years of Zen. And then there's also other kinds, and the kind that's dangerous and scary and is on the market. If you take 1,000 people and you measure their brains, and then you average them, you say, okay, here's the average brain. That's a healthy, normal brain.
Hmm.
Well, if you're an F student and we did that kind of feedback on you, now you're a C student. It's life changing. But if you're an A student, we just dumbed you down.
Interesting.
So I'm actually quite afraid of that kind of feedback, and I see these videos of kids in China all doing neurofeedback in the house, for 6-year-olds, giving them a reward. They're trying to study, and it's measuring their brains.
All right. So, how can you tell whether the data is being averaged in the device or the protocol that you're using to measure the neurofeedback?
You kinda have to ask. They're not really gonna tell you.
All right, so I know
And
one for sure that you've been working on for well over a year now with Satoria. Um,
yeah.
I've noticed the peak alpha score, which I didn't even know existed until it was defined and I started to study it and monitor it. It started really high for me and then it dipped and I've been using it 5 days a week since, well, I'll just give you the months since about 6 or 7 months ago. And what I've
Mhm.
noticed is it's starting to inch back up now. And not only is it
Yep.
inching back up, it's not going as through many peaks and valleys. It's inching at a higher average rate. So it's been really interesting to
Yes.
watch that. With Satoria specifically, what did you discover that surprised you?
Mm. So Satoria is named after Satori, which is a Japanese Zen Buddhism state where you suddenly snap into oneness with everything in full presence, with nothing else mattering around you. So that's where the name Satoria comes from.
Interesting.
And I've wanted for years. So 40 years of Zen is 10 years old. We've had more than 1,000 CEO types come through and just change their brains. In fact, we've got a psychiatrist here with 30 years of clinical experience recently, and she just said, I never understood all the spiritual stuff my clients talked about until this week. I didn't do any drugs, but I felt it. Right. So people have these interesting, like spiritual experiences, sometimes on par with plant medicine, with no drugs at all. Right? They're just having that from just looking at what's going on in there. And what I've discovered at Zen that I've translated through into Satoriya has to do with when someone really has a transformative spiritual experience, we know what the brainwaves look like, to the point that I've developed software that can say this is when you performed a reset. This is when it looks like you were having something really deep happen,
Mhm.
and how to induce that without requiring substances to do it. So that's part one. And then with Satoria, which people can do at home, it's been my dream since I started the company to say, how do I take a $20,000 VIP experience with a Michelin star chef and like all the team working on your brand, like Formula One race car mechanics, and give people as close as I can get at home. So Satoria is that. And what you find there is I have strong brainwaves, it doesn't mean anything. I recently went to the Antarctic through the Drake Passage, and having big waves isn't really a good thing if they're choppy and chaotic and all over the place. But having really big, orderly waves is actually useful. So, what's going on with your brainwaves because you're using Satoria regularly is first, your power went down because the orderliness went up. They became organized. Now that they're organized, the power is going up. And the people who can capture the room, they have orderly, high powered brainwaves that are aligned with the information coming off the heart. Now, some people just rolled your eyes going, oh, come on, coming off the heart. No, there's a magnetic field. It's tipped 8 degrees to the left. We can measure it and we draw graphs of the spacing between your heartbeats. And 80% of the nerves from the heart go to the brain. So there is a connection between the two. And when you align those mathematically, this is what meditation does, but you can measure, repeat, and train it. So it's not quantum blue nonsense. And when you do that, you walk into a room and people's nervous systems will entrain to yours without them knowing it. And it's not like I discovered that. We just helped to prove some of that.
Mhm.
The people who really know about this are casinos. If you're on a run at a table with big stakes, they'll send in the guy who has really powerful and disordered brainwaves and he'll sit at the table and everything just goes to hell.
Wow.
This is a real job. Like this is like the downer, right? And so they know this works, and they just have, well, that guy's just no one wants to be in a room with him. Let's put him at the table, and then whoa. So
Hmm.
you want to be the guy who's so powerful that even if there's one of those there, that you still own the room,
Interesting.
and
So you can
that's
overcome the guy
that's
at the
what happened.
table if you practice enough.
Absolutely, it's like Jedi, invisible Jedi Knight battles of energy fields, pretty much.
All right. I want to shift a little bit back to some of the research you did before you wrote Heavily Meditated. You talk a lot about triggers. You mentioned someone being triggered maybe on this podcast today. Um, do you think most people misunderstand stress entirely?
Oh, 100%. So here's what's really happening. Something in the environment or in your body triggers a stress response. The stress response is programmed by an experience sometime in your life where your body didn't feel safe. There's a whole threat detection system that's designed to keep your meat alive as if your brain wasn't in there. And we have plenty of evidence. You ever lean on a hot stove accidentally and go, "Oh, I guess that's kind of hot. I think I should move my hand." And we don't do that. We jerk our hand away and go, "Good thing I moved my hand," but you didn't decide to do it. Some other intelligence moved your hand and you took credit for it.
Hmm.
Right? So there's another guy in there with different goals than you, and that's the game. That's what we're working on in all of the things that we're doing is how do we program that?
Well, I think any of you watching or listening that have children should really tune in when Dave talks about stress responses and how you can start to control them. Neurofeedback might be one of those ways. I can tell you personally, I have a 9-year-old boy and a 14-year-old boy, and they are powerful personalities, strong children. And I've already noticed a difference in how I can control my response. That doesn't mean I
Uh-huh.
haven't lost it once or twice here and there. That's normal, right? You're human. But I've noticed when I'm at my peak energy level, I can do it almost 100% of the time. If I've gotten a good night's sleep, if I've taken some of those key minerals in the morning, even if I had, so I'm a real estate attorney by trade. Even though I may have a stressful day where my phone's ringing off the hook, people walking in my office, maybe a handful of them have complaints about something they're dealing with. I come home and I'm exhausted. I don't want to talk to anybody. But more I've been doing this neurofeedback training, the more my resilience has grown. As soon as I have a bad night's
You
sleep, that ability to do that goes down.
you nailed it so perfectly. Having enough energy allows you to be better at self-regulation, and being trained on self-regulation means it takes less energy to self-regulate. And
Hmm.
the idea that, we're stressed, because of my mother-in-law or because of my boss or something, it's actually not real. That's the story that happens. So stress can happen in the body because of malnourishment, because you didn't sleep, because you got some toxins from your gut bacteria, any kind of environmental stressor. You can also have that pattern matching system going, you know what? In third grade, little Bobby punched me in the face, and you're not thinking this, but your body's scanning for these rapid threats. A guy walks in the room who smells like little Bobby or looks like little Bobby. And you won't know why, but your body's going to send you a fight or flight response,
Hmm.
right? And it's going to totally invisible. But now you're like, all right, I'm feeling fight or flight. Now I got to find a reason in my reason maker, my brain. So you're going to find a reason, and you're going to blame your spouse, your partner, something. Like you'll make up a story and you'll believe the story. And so what a trigger really is it's the body mismatching a threat. It's not really a threat. You know it's not a threat, but your body thinks it's a threat. And one of the biggest threats is lack of energy in the body, right? So physiological threats, you will map to your partner's fault. How many people have ever been with someone who has a migraine and they yell at you for their
No
migraine?
kidding.
And
I
somehow it's
won't
your
name any
fault.
names, but I can think of a couple.
Exactly. So
Well,
that's what stress really is.
what would you say
Yeah.
something simple that listeners can try today?
Well, if you're feeling unreasonably reactive, for any reason, the fastest way to turn that off is you can take a breath in for 4 seconds and then breathe out for 8 seconds, just through the nose.
Mm.
So the out breath, twice as long as the in breath, is a way to shift from sympathetic to parasympathetic.
Something seems so
And
simple, but
it's what?
it's something that seems so simple, yet it really works, and you got to just try it.
Yeah, and just do 3 of those in a row, and if you're curious about it and you just watch what your body does when you do that, like, "Oh my god." And if you do enough meditation or neurofeedback or breath work, any of the things, psychedelics, all the stuff and heavily meditated, heck, tantra, it doesn't matter. You do enough practice of self-awareness, you realize it's your body's a car and you're driving it around all the time, but it's actually not you. And it does all sorts of weird crap,
Hmm.
and you can believe it or not believe it, but you can't trust everything that your body tells you because sometimes it's just not reality based.
Well, you mentioned heart coherence, and Joe Dispenza is the expert on that. He's got so much content and material with his programs. Stuff, some is complimentary. You can just Google him if you're listening. I know you know of him, and he's a good friend of yours. I saw him speak at the conference last year, which we'll talk about the next one upcoming here shortly. But that he's real big on that heart brain coherence, where the
He
heart is like another.
he is, and oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Well, I'm saying
Uh,
don't listen to me or Dave on heart brain coherence, even though we may be educated. Go to the expert that's been studying it for decades.
th there's 2 guys to listen to. Joe Dispenza, amazing breath work, and he measures this coherence. And a lot of the original coherence came from the Heart Math Institute. And Roland McCready is an electrical engineer, has been studying this coherence I talked about earlier for 30 years. Also a dear friend who's been on my podcast a couple times and has also spoken at the Beyond Biohacking conference. Between those 2 bodies of work, it is abundantly clear that you can consciously change the spacing of your heartbeat, including with the breath I just shared. And when you do that, reality shifts from your perspective. I'm not saying it actually shifts, just the
Yeah.
way you see it shifts. So suddenly that person's not a monster. They're just a traumatized, tired adult who stayed up all night taking care of their kid, and you can just give them some grace. Or you can trip them when they're walking out of the room so that they'll stop it. Whatever you want to do, but you don't do it because you're angry. You do it because you're in control.
That's good stuff. All right. As far as longevity goes, we talked about how you can go down these rabbit holes, spend all this money, become obsessed with it. What's one thing people are doing that's actually hurting their long-term health?
Protein restriction is harming people's long term health right now. And the big food industry has put a lot of money into convincing you that you should eat mostly plants and limit your protein. That's economic. It's nothing to do with your longevity. And everyone I know in the longevity field, I've got 25 years since I started running a longevity nonprofit in Palo Alto in the late 90s, and just learned from so many experts. Every longevity doc I work with says, oh man, the low protein, the vegan patients are the sickest and the hardest to heal.
But what
So,
about you can get protein from plants too, right? And beans,
yeah, you
legumes?
you can get protein from plants. It's just only 30% as effective as animal-based protein.
Well, there's this expert
So,
that you and I both I don't know him personally like you, but Peter
yeah,
Diamandis. In his
yep.
book, The Longevity Guidebook, which came out a year or 2 ago, um, he says he eats a 90% plant-based diet. So a guy like that,
You know,
I just how do you respond to that?
Peter is a dear friend, and also so is the guy who wrote the Blue Zone book. Right, the Blue Zones diet, incredible human beings. So they're both dear friends, both on the longevity, uh, the good guy side. And there's a bunch of angry user, just kind of hateful longevity people that I'm not going to really go into. But so these are good people, and there is a body of evidence around certain amino acid restriction, and there's a whole bunch of evidence around protein sufficiency.
Hmm.
So it's funny. Another guy in the field who's recent is, oh, I'm vegan. I'm like, no, you're not. You eat collagen protein. Like, I made collagen a $1 billion industry because we need collagen. So none of them are vegan. But what you find with a 90% plant based diet is that plants have tons of toxins that directly cause aging. Plants create lipopolysaccharides in the gut, which are these inflammatory compounds made by gut bacteria. And I'm not saying you shouldn't eat plants, you need them. I'm just saying that not all plants are created equal. Beans are not a great source of carbohydrates, and so the longest lived diet, as far as I can tell, after many years in the field, is adequate animal protein so that your body can regenerate itself. There's a reason I'm 7.5% body fat, and I used to weigh 300 pounds, and I'm 53, and my labs say I'm somewhere in my mid 30s to 40s.
Mhm.
So I'm coming from behind, and I can do that. And I eat 1 gram of animal protein per pound of body weight. And when you do it, everything changes, including your longevity metrics. So
What I'm
I,
hearing is that some people might be able to do that effectively if they have the doctors and the research and the discipline to get the right plants and the right mix of those proteins, right? Maybe the
you
supplements as
you
well.
You do need some discipline, and there's another thing that's kind of the scary part of longevity. It's something called APOE3 and 4. And if you've had even mid-tier blood work, if you have an APOE4 gene or two, your odds of dying from dementia and cardiovascular disease are much higher. So these are the people who get sick. And so if you have that, it's like, oh no, you have the bad genes. Well, just a month ago, a paper came out going, if you increase the amount of unprocessed animal protein that those genetics eat, their risk goes away. So it turns out all these high risk people, they're just people who needed more meat. Right. So
Mhm.
we really, if you go back a long time, you ate as much meat as you could get because of the fat and the protein in it. And you ate plants to fill in the rest. And to turn it around, I just don't think there's science to support it.
That's fair, and I think many people would agree with you. I've noticed a difference when I've tried both. I've never gone 90% plants. I don't think I could, especially not in my household growing up with, Latin American. They like to eat a lot
Well,
of
plus
meat, so
your kids would get sick. Their bone density goes down. And I adore Peter, and I'd like to see what his bone density looks like because even with all the biohacks, I also went on full vegan diet, and man, uh, it's interesting. We'll see what happens there.
yeah. Alright, I'm gonna throw some rapid fire questions in here. What's the, best $100 investment in your health?
Get a sleep tracker of some sort.
What's the worst trend in wellness right now?
Wow, you want a rapid fire on that? Okay. The worst trend is following influencers who don't know anything about wellness. Like the echo chamber is so big right now. They're like someone said this and someone said this, and by the time you hear it, it's like the whisper game. And 10 later, it's so simplified that you end up harming yourself.
I
So
think you
follow the
answered
people
that
who do the
well.
research.
Yeah, following the influencer trend. What's one thing that you've changed your mind on recently?
I used to be a bigger fan of chocolate, almonds, and raspberries than I am now because of a very nasty plant toxin called oxalate. And I wrote about this in my first big book. I just didn't understand the dose and the importance the way I do now. So by restricting that type of plant toxin, I've had massive shifts in health, and I just taught thousands of people how to do it on a recent like free thing I did on my website. So I was, even though chocolate's good for you, too much chocolate not so good for you. So oxalate would be an issue.
Something that you do daily that people would be surprised by.
I take 150 supplements a day.
Yeah, so for those that follow you, like myself, aren't as surprised because they've heard it before, but the first time I heard it, I was surprised, and when I took even half that number, I was like, "Wow, this is a lot." One thing that leads me to question, which I've been wanting to ask you for a while, is how much time in between those supplements? Like, are you taking them throughout the day? Are you making sure you have a big glass of water for every 10 or 15? Like, tell me a little bit more about that.
I take the majority of them in the morning. So it's basically three big handfuls. And then I take one or two handfuls at night.
And so,
Uh,
with the
and
handful, does it matter if they're all mixed together? I mean, they're all different supplements.
I put them together so that there's nothing that'll conflict. And it turns out most supplements are just fine together. It's usually drugs have a hard time if you take them with minerals. So if I was taking pharmaceuticals, I would take them away or make sure that they didn't conflict. Everything else is compatible. But it's possible to take things like calcium can stop some supplements from working, for instance.
Okay.
But it's not as big of a problem, especially if you eat something. So I'll take with one glass of water all I don't know, 75 or 80 of them.
I'm
And
glad I finally came full circle on that. I was always and obviously some are fat soluble, some are water soluble, so you might have to be mindful of that. And some are best at night.
yeah, I take a few bites of food. Like I'll eat that, get some sheep cheese or a bite of yogurt or a bite of steak or something, and
Yeah.
I'm good to go.
Well, let's talk about what's upcoming is the big Beyond Biohacking Conference, May 27th through May 29th. And before we wrap up, I want to make sure people know about this. So, from what I understand, this brings together leaders across the longevity, performance, neuroscience, emerging health technologies all in one place. It used to be called the Biohacking Conference. It was recently renamed, and you're going to have Jay Shetty there, who wrote Think Like a Monk, Arthur Brooks, Patrick Kennedy Jr., Gabriel Lyon, who a lot of people watch
He's
on
great.
social media, and then Dr. Stephanie Venn Watson. And there's more probably to be announced. I know when I was there last year, you threw some people in and it was like filling in because life happens, right? And someone might not show up and then you replace them with someone even better. So what I
There Go ahead, yeah.
well, this is the world's longest running biohacking conference of its kind. It's in its 14th year. And what I found interesting is I met people in Austin that were from all around the world that just came in for that conference. Whereas I went to the World Biohacking Conference that they had in Miami and they have offshoots. And I know that they founded that off the principles and the routines and the structure that you put together. How might
They
you
always try to make it look like it's my event, but yeah, that one's not mine.
Yeah, it's well, sometimes it's hard to distinguish, but, for someone listening who's curious about this space, what can they expect from the event, and who is it really for?
So you go to Beyond Biohacking if you want to learn from the people who did the work. You want to meet the people who built the products. We've got more than 120 vendors. So you don't believe in hyperbaric or you want to try it, it's there. All the lasers, all the supplements, all the latest things. But the most important thing is you're hanging out with 5,000 people who are like you. They're actually curious about what's going on in there and they're doing something about it. So the comment I hear from first timers every year is everyone here is beautiful. And it's not Instagram influencer beautiful. People are there from 18 to 88 from all over the world and they're there, but they're beautiful because they're just like excited. And so people have met there, they've got married, they've started businesses, and it's become the industry event for what's a $36 billion conference. But the people who go, some of them are, I'm into biohacking, I run a business, but the majority of them are just saying, you know what, I want to go somewhere where I can spend quality time with quality people and learn all the latest things that are going to work that no one else is going to know for 20 years. Oh, and Steve Aoki plays he's the DJ for the party we have. This year's theme is spirit animals. If you wear a costume, we have a full-on costume party for 5,000 people with the top DJ on earth. Because it turns out community is one of the most affordable longevity drugs there is. It's
That's what
beyond
I've heard.
biohacking. Yeah.
Well, where should people go to learn more or get started with I know there's still some tickets left, not a lot, but
Yeah.
20 maybe percent, I don't know. If that,
Oh, less than that.
less than
Yeah,
that.
it's beyondbiohacking.com. We will sell out this year for sure. There's a few VIP tickets left. Those you get to have dinner with me and other VIPs and the speakers, and you get a whole room full of gifting goodies. That's a really good value. And we've got a few GAs left. And after that, it's full. It's the largest hotel in Austin. It's at the Fairmont, and the quality of the people you meet is unparalleled. It is so much fun. You will make friends there.
I can attest to that. Um, the, um the experiences that start at 5:30 in the morning, also something make sure if you do go and you're listening to plan your day meticulously before you show up because you will get derailed easily. And if you don't set your own agenda, someone will set it for you. So look at it, plan it. I want to mention if daveasprey.com is where you can go learn more. You can see all the books that Dave's written. Heavily Meditated is the newest one. Highly recommend whether it's audio or written. And if you go to the conference, you can get all these, and you might get one signed if you look for the right time and
It,
space. Sator-
There you go. And just a quick comment on Heavily Meditated. It became a bestseller, but it's a meditation altered states book that became the best-selling philosophy book in the country because it explains what's going on in there in a way that's coherent. Whether you're a Buddhist, you meditate, you're an atheist, or you're of any of the faiths, there's a reason that your body's doing this. It's in that book. And I think it's my most important work. So if you're to do it, get the audiobook, check it out. I don't make any money if you buy the audiobook. I'm not trying to sell you.
yeah.
I'm trying to get you to read it because it matters.
Yeah. Change the world by changing one thing at a time in your world. Well, Dave, I really enjoyed this. I appreciate you taking the time with me today. And
That's
thanks
great
again
fun.
for
Have a wonderful day.
you too. Take care.